Well, hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Kerbal Space Program. This time we're going to pick up where we left off and get these poor guys back to Kerbal. Now, what I've done since the intro from the last episode is I simply fast-forwarded basically with time acceleration until we got a close encounter. So that's 16.7 kilometers away from the orbiter that we're trying to catch up with. So we're just going to get close to that and then basically kill the speed that we have in relation to the target to try to get a very close encounter. Now, because this target doesn't have a docking port and we don't have RCS, we're not going to be able to actually dock with the ship, which was a design flaw on my part, but we will be able to get close enough for the Kerbals to sort of jetpack over. So, now that we're getting pretty close, what I'm going to do is essentially kill a lot of our velocity in regards to the target, try to get down close to zero. That's good enough. And then aim towards the target marker, which is the sort of purple, more square thing. And actually, oh, well, it says we're going right towards it. And I'm going to get this up to about 40 meters per second in this direction. You know, this is not the most efficient way necessarily to rendezvous something in orbit, but it's fast. It works for me, and we have, you know, fuel to burn. So we're getting down to, you know, 1/8 of a kilometer away from it with that trajectory. So let's see where our target is. So we're just going to, again, time accelerate until we get to that, you know, 0.8 kilometer away that we were mentioning. Now, you notice we actually accelerated, and that's just because of sort of the effect of the orbit changing our relative velocity to the orbiter. So we'll line up this so when we get to that 0.8 kilometers away, which we're going pretty quickly towards, that we can kill a lot of that speed. So we're going to try and push our retrograde marker towards away from the target marker. I'm not sure what the exact term for that is, to be honest. We get down to about 10 meters, 14 meters per second, just so that we'll be able to, you know, still get there, but without going so quickly that if we were on a collision course, we wouldn't be able to rectify that. So this should be pretty close here, hopefully. And get a little bit closer though, because again, what we want to be parked, you know, metaphorically, basically have zero relative velocity to it, about 100 meters away or less. That'll give us close enough space that these guys can very easily jetpack over there. They can go a lot further distances than that, but just try to keep it safe. After all, these guys have been trapped out here on the moon for quite a while. So we don't want to put them through too much more than that we have to. So let's go ahead and kill that last little bit of speed. Okay, get down to 1 meter per second and get nice and close to this target. And that's about as close as we're going to get, and more than close enough, way closer than we'll actually need. So I'm going to try to get this to be 0.0 meters per second. And there we go. I'm going to time accelerate just for a second to kill our rotation as well, and then leave seat with Firkin, and he's just a beautiful picture of him there, silhouetted against the sun and the, I guess, Kerbal. So you can see for him to get over here is actually really a very easy task. The only issue is, of course, we don't want to hit this thing with too much force because that might cause a problem. Now, this is a very utilitarian ship that we're going towards. It's not anything beautiful. It's just essentially it's one of the big tanks, nuclear engine, some RCS, which I think is out, and a hitchhiker storage container. So we're just going to very gently try to meet up with this thing, grab a hold, and board. And then we can go back and do this for each of these 4 Kerbals, which should be a fairly easy task. Again, you know, I might have been able to actually get them back to Kerbal riding in those rover seats, but I think they've been through enough already. I don't think actually having to go through re-entry effects in their suits is something that we should put them through afterwards. That being said, that would be a fun thing to test out with maybe a suborbital flight in the future to see if they can survive that, but don't want to put them through that. So let's go ahead and board that as well. So we got 2 out of 4. And this is the Firkin number 2. Now, I don't know if he's going to disappear when he comes in here because of the the part of the game where it doesn't recognize that you have more than one. But if the game does that, we can still treat it as if he was there after all. Even if he was an evil clone, perhaps he was actually Firkin from the future on a mission to save himself and being at the same place at the same time. No, it seems like they are both there. So we have 2 Firkin Kermans there, and both of them seem to be behaving quite well. Now we're going to go ahead and get our very last. This is Siegfried again, the leader of the last mission. Get him over here. I think we've gone from being in the light to into the dark side of things, but that'll light it up. Getting a little bit closer here. Oh crap. Okay, so Siegfried is so overcome with guilt about his previous mishaps that he has hit his head quite hard and his body has gone limp and he's just floating around, and hopefully I can regain control over him. Time warp might help. There we go. So he just completely lost control of himself again, overcome with guilt that the mission he led to the moon was not successful. And that guilt actually took him quite a far distance away from this rescue thing. But we have, over 80% of our fuel left. We should be fine getting back here. We will try not to. We'll try not to collide, though, with our target. So just do some lateral movement here. Trying to very gently get around to this. Okay. I think this should do. We should be able to actually grab a hold here. Okay, and board. And there we go. We have all 4 Kerbals aboard. They're going to take a nice little rest there while we get our heroic Kerbal here. Hold up. Where's Handan? Yeah, he's in there, but he's not. His picture is not coming up for some reason. That is weird. But his picture's not there. But we're going to go ahead and get Handan back to Kerbal. My initial plan was to get him to back into space. That being said, I realized that he wasn't really. He didn't have he had a docking port, but didn't have what's it called? So we're going to go ahead and kind of slow down that way. And let's see. Depending on where we put this, I want to be able to put this in a place that will minimize our periapsis. It seems to be, yeah, right around there. It gives us a nice low periapsis. So that'll give us the most bang for our buck as far as getting into a suborbital place. And we want to hit really low if we can. That might actually be overkill. So that gets us down to 36. Let's see if we can go any lower than that. 21. That should be enough for us to maybe back to 36, because we want to aerobrake. We don't want to land per se. But 50 is definitely too high to aerobrake. I think nice and close to 30 should do it. So let's get our thing up here. Go ahead and fast forward to the next node. We're at 30 minutes away. And I don't think, we didn't do any major changes that would cause us to, have a collision course with the moon, so no problems there. And ideally we want to try to land near KSC, because if you want to take your Kerbals back for more missions in the future, the best way to recover them is actually from the launch pad. So we're getting down to 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So we have 1 minute until we have to do our burn, and it's going to take us about 30 seconds. Now, I think I'm just going to go ahead and start when it's 24 seconds away from that, instead of trying to complicatedly get this to aim up nice and even. And you notice that because we parked next to the rescue orbiter, even though we have moved slightly away from it, we're still within a kilometer of it, which means that, getting closer would be very easy. Unless we had done, a few hundred orbits, we would not be too far away from this thing. So get a little bit closer to time for burn. And that'll do. So we're just going to start our burn now, try and get back to Kerbin. And the reason I'm burning at this point is, again, to leave retrograde in regards to the moon. My thought being that doing that will kind of kill some of our orbital velocity and help us not only leave the moon with quite a bit of speed away from it, but also help us get to Kerbin in a more energy efficient way. Again, we have tons of fuel, so that should do. Let's get rid of this maneuver node and see what our trajectory is. This is going to leave the moon again, and we're going to come in at a kind of a skew orbit away from Kerbin, but I don't know where KSC is, so I have to kind of look through this giant mess of things, and this is where we want to land. So hopefully after we air brake here, we'll be able to come back out above the surface. But let's switch back to our orbiter itself, our lander itself, and come back to Kerbin here, and hopefully not break things. Now we are going to experience some re-entry effects. If we experience too many, that might cause us to it might cause us to actually have to emergency land. But I'm trying to get this this whole air braking maneuver down. It's tricky though, especially because we're below 60,000 meters now, and I'm going to use physical time acceleration at least until we start seeing some re-entry effects though. Just for the sake of keeping the episode under 20 minutes, you know. I don't want to have things be too long here. But I think that we're landing in the dark, unfortunately. I should have probably timed that to be landing during the day. But this air braking should slow us down just enough, hopefully, to get a nice low Kerbin orbit. Again, if I overshot it or undershot it, we might not. Let's see. It looks like I've already passed the periapsis, which was 46, which is higher than intended. So I'm going to do one more loop around. Actually, I know this poor guy has been out here forever, but you notice that we air braked a little bit, got our APRSs down from, you know, moon area at 11 million to down to about 6 million. So let's do one more. Alright guys, sorry about that. I had to cut out a couple of seconds of the video just because my dogs were barking in the background, pretty loudly too. Didn't want to give anyone a heart attack. So we're just going to try to get up to our apoasis here, and also try not to collide with our space station. We're going pretty close, but we're not, kind of askew. So let's go ahead and slow down just a little bit here. Try to get our periapsis down to 30, I think. I think 30 will be a good place to get it to. I think that should suffice for aero braking. I think much lower than 30 is really risky. I think any higher than that's not going to be sufficient to get us back into orbit. So let's get down below atmospheric levels, and we've hit the thin upper layers of the atmosphere. Hopefully, again, we'll be able to aero brake and achieve a stable orbit without, hopefully without bouncing off the surface, both in terms of crashing or just, you know, having a high orbit again as well. But I think we should be fine. Again, some of the, oh, and here we go. We have some re-entry effects happening. And this should be fairly bright because we're going, again, about 3,000 meters per second. That's quite some speed that we're going at, and you can see this poor little guy is in here probably scared to death without any proper heat shielding. It's really not kosher to be just kind of going through the air like this, but we're nearing our periapsis, and I think we're getting to the area where either we're going to bounce up or we're going to crash. So it's hard to say. It really depends on how far down the atmosphere we go. It really depends on that. It looks like, okay, we're going to give it a burn prograde. in hopes that we can re-achieve orbit. We might not be able to. But here we go. So let's see how that looks. Our Oasis is going up and then coming back down. So try to do this from an orbital view. Okay, so our Oasis is still suborbital, unfortunately. So I don't think we're going to be able to get into full orbit here. So I probably shot a little bit too low for air braking, which is, it's fine. Probably fine. Could be bad. Hard to say for sure. But, you know, it looks like we actually, we have an Oasis that's above 80. So that is good. Let's see how we're doing as far as drag. So that was probably a very risky air brake, but I think we may have actually gotten a decent Oasis. It's almost like we did another launch. Now, if we could just stretch that out, let's go ahead and fast forward up to it. And it is degrading slightly, but I think 75 is about where atmosphere actually starts. So we're going to head up to here until we hit about 80. Well, slightly under 80. And hopefully we can, you know, get a landing trajectory right onto KSC. Then we can, you know, lose our what's it called? Our last stage. So we're technically in space right now. We're going to go ahead and aim prograde. And again, guys, I don't claim that anything I'm doing is the most efficient way of doing it. If you want to see someone who actually, you know, is really good at these things, knows what they're doing, I'd say Scott Manley is the person to check into, because he is quite good. And he I think he does some sort of sciencey things. Wow, that's not probably the most technical term for that. Let's see if we can't get this to go a little bit further south. Trying to find which way to get this to go a bit more towards KSC. We're overshooting, but I want to not come quite so far north. So let's see, if I point south, I think this is south. The nav ball always confuses me. Let's see if that does anything. So it does. It's extending our orbit, but it's also bringing it down some. And there we go. So we are aimed to land slightly off the coast of East Kerbal Place. Let's go ahead and fast forward to our re-entry. This should be our last re-entry. Hopefully we'll land us very close to KSC if possible. It's hard to say though, because even though we're coming in at such an angle here that we might be bringing back our aim a little bit too far. So as we are re-entering, you know, we're going up. I wish they had names for all these continents, because it's really quite a cool world they have here for the Kerbals. It kind of, the main one is kind of reminiscent of Africa in its shape and kind of European-ish, and this is sort of like, it reminds you of Southeast Asia to a degree. Oh, had a glitch there of some sort. But I do think we're about to hit re-entry effects pretty soon. Well, should be actually the lighter blue, I think, is when we really start to see that. Now, how is that affecting our... Okay, so... Oh, wrong button. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and shoot up just a little bit more. Bring that out just a tiny bit further, maybe to this island right here. Again, since we're going to be facing a lot of turbulence here pretty soon. We want to get as close as possible to KSC, and we have very little fuel left, so we might not be able to do it. But it's definitely worth making a shot towards it. So let's go ahead and aim up here, and I'll actually use the. Okay, so let's go ahead and very gently put our engines on, and try to extend out as far as possible. At this point in time, I think that we're almost certainly going to have some problems here. Again, I think I'm taking this re-entry. Just a little bit too slow. Okay. But as we're coming down, we're going to get near the Kerbal continent at the Ape Oasis here. Okay. Our very low Ape Oasis. I think I might have ended up going north a little bit there, actually. And this is going to put us actually pretty close to KSC. Probably not close enough to land on the actual launch pad itself, but it's looking promising. Now, what is our altitude right now? So we can actually see KSC from here. So I can actually put this as our target. And then we can try and push our retrograde marker towards it. It's going to be very unlikely to actually affect us, and we are actually out of fuel, unfortunately. So we're going to re-enter now. I'm going to land in this mountain range, so of course we can always send out a little mini rescue party to get this guy next episode. Hopefully he will land on ground though, because that will be much easier for us to do. I'm going to wait until we stop having re-entry effects to open the parachutes, unless of course we get really low and start to get worried. We are going quite fast right now, and I think we're doing a pretty close landing, at least for my lack of experience with this kind of stuff. The re-entry effects aren't quite as impressive this time, of course, given how much slower we're going than last time. But we're going to go ahead and hit our parachutes to start slowing down, and we're going to jettison that part of us. It's just a kind of a heavy thing weighing us down, kind of a disaster waiting to happen. So we're going to try and aim, well, hopefully north. Well, up, I guess. So sort of aim retrograde so that we can actually land successfully here. And as our retrograde marker moves more and more towards up, we can kind of level out at this point. So aim directly up and hit that, and that's gonna definitely blow up. We are headed down towards dry ground, and the big thing here is we want to make sure that we don't fly apart when these parachutes open up. We shouldn't, because I've tested this craft quite a bit. But it would be really sad if the hero of this whole mission were to die after all of this, just as he was landing a few kilometers from Kerbal. I mean, we're 30 kilometers away. We could easily have a suborbital space plane come and pick him up, or something along those lines. Maybe next episode. Oh, actually, next episode we're probably going to try to get the first crew back over. But after that, should be able to. Now, I think we're going to open up our parachutes right about here, and that went very smoothly. So I will time warp until we get really close. I'm going to stop the time warp, of course, though, when we get right next to ground, because I do not want to have any issues there. There have been issues in the past where I was time warping and did a horrible, horrible crash. So I'm going to change this to surface velocity just to make sure that that things are clear, and I am happy with this. We are having a nice, safe return home. Now, of course, this isn't the end of the rescue series. This is kind of more of a it's hard to say. This is this guy getting home. I was hoping to get the other guys home in this episode, but we're already going about 25 minutes, and I don't want I don't want this to be the end of the series. I don't want to have like a 30-minute long video. So there we go. Go ahead and have Handan, evacuate this. Well, EVA doesn't stand for evacuate; it stands for extravehicular activity. But he is standing tall and proud back on Kerbal underneath the mountains. So we'll have to go get him sometime. But next episode, though, we're going to focus again on our poor people who are still orbiting the moon. And so until next time, guys, have a good one. Later.